Yo, welcome to another edition of Your Therapist Needs Therapy, the podcast where your friendly neighborhood therapist, me, Jeremy Schumacher, licensed marriage and family therapist, talks about slowly deteriorating mental health as the American empire slowly crumbles. That's not really what the podcast is about. Generally, I talk about mental health with other mental health professionals, but sometimes we got to check in and see what's going on in the wide world of America, crumbling empire, stupid MAGA leader people. It is a silly time to be alive, and also life is wonderful and beautiful. And we're we're gonna check in and see what MAGA is losing their mind about while gas prices continue to climb. Over $4 here in the Midwest, projected to be over $6. Not that long from now, should be a good time if there ever was a debate about whether or not people should have voted for Donald Trump. There wasn't, right? Like the answer was no. But maybe we're falling backwards into getting off of oil, except we also cut all funding for wind and nuclear and solar. So again, no real plan, blah, 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 blah. This administration is incredibly harmful out of petty spite. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're not even going to get into the sexual ethics of having a pedophile in charge of things. We're going to get into specifically what some MAGA folks who have fallen out of favor is happening. And right, this sort of always happens with empire. And if you have studied sort of any of the historical precedent of fascism, there's unending loyalty tests, and one of the reasons you don't give in to fascism is because you can never please a fascist. If somebody requires loyalty and their only unifying sort of ethos is there must be a bad guy, eventually they're going to turn on you. And so we have a recent news story of Kristi Noem, who formerly was in charge of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, even though she's woefully unqualified for that. She's governor of one of the Dakotas before that, South Dakota, North Dakota. I don't remember. They're interchangeable. Dakotans, drop down in the comments and argue with me. You won't convince me I'm wrong. I went to a school with a bunch of Dakotans, and I couldn't tell you which one they were ever from. States are a silly thing. Land ownership is a silly thing. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about Kristi Noem. Garbage human being, right? Like, we know she shot her dog because she's mad at it. She struggled to train it, and so she decided it should die. And again, if anyone's going to get put into a fascist position in a government where that department is going to oversee murdering innocent civilians, I guess you want someone like Kristi Noem. And so she sort of served her purpose. The Trump regime seems to sort of be moving people around before they can testify before Congress, although the Supreme Court maybe just today decided that Congress can't subpoena people. So again, it's all crumbling. Part of the reason I don't want to do a news podcast, even though there's news to make us crazy every week, and I could make things about mental health if I really pushed it, is because there's so many things going on, and I don't really think it's helpful for us to track everything all the time. I say that as a middle-aged ADHDer who probably has the brain capacity to do that to some degree. I just think it is damaging to our mental health. But every once in a while, I like check in and see what's going on. So Kristi Noem has been not deposed. What's the word I'm looking for? Let go. She got fired. She got moved to be like, I don't know, protector of the shield of the core of America or some made up thing. They're just like veering dangerously close to explicit like neo-Nazi hate groups, like terrorist groups like Covenant Sword and the Arm of the Lord. Like we're right there. That group already exists or existed in the past. So Noem's gone, and in sort of her disgrace and her fall from favor, it came out that it didn't come out then. She's been having a very open, very public affair for a while. And her affair partner seems to also be a garbage person who didn't really deserve to be in a position of power other than he was having an affair with Kristi Noem, allegedly. And it came out that Kristi Noem's husband, who she's still married to, has a bimbofication fetish. For those of you who are unaware of the various kinks that are out in the world, this was fairly innocuous. I don't know. It's the bimbo fetish is sort of based on the idea of really overdone um, facial features, particularly the lips, potentially cheekbones, giant fake breasts, giant fake butt implants, and just like anything that could be sort of feminine feature gets way, 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 way overrepresented and like blown out of proportions. Like if well, I don't want to say that. I was gonna say if Barbie was a real person, because we know Barbie's dimensions aren't realistic, but it's more than that. It really is just sort of like any of the secondary sexual traits that would be ascribed to being feminine, way overdone. Uh, Kristi Noem has this too, right? Like that's all that Mar-a-Lago face is like a bimbofication fetish. Now, Kristi Noem's husband, I don't even know his name, Doug, maybe something like that, a white guy from one of the Dakotas. These characters are fairly interchangeable at this part in history. Um, the thing that people were upset about and the quote unquote scandal that this was is because Doug is a man. And so a bimbofication fetish for a dude is again big fake tits, hair and makeup, wig, over exaggerated lips, and he paid escorts, sex workers. We're not sure who he was working with. It seems like some form of sex workers to dress him up like this and then make fun of and or degrade him. As a marriage and family therapist, I work with a lot of different sexual kinks all the time. I will say probably the one that my dudes that I've worked with over the years have struggled with the most, like the one that brought an odd, what I would consider an odd amount of shame. And I'm not judging them, like with so much love in my heart, I'm not sure why this was such a struggle for so many people, is cross dressing. Pretty common kink, fairly innocuous. Again, playing dress up as an adult for sexual pleasure. Who cares? It's not harming anyone, done consensually. Again, most of the people I've worked with over the years dress up for themselves, and there may or may not be a sexual component to it, and they post in like cross-dressing forums. Pretty innocuous. Bimbofication, again, like part of the thing that I think is maybe unhelpful about the bimbo fetish is like it is sort of the idea of all these overly hyper sexualized traits. And I think there's the idea that a bimbo is like dumb and only good for sex. And so there's some misogyny in there. The component, again, for Noem's husband being like into it and the humiliation factor. Again, it would not shock me. This is pure hypothesis from somebody who works with people who are having some of these sexual dynamics sometimes, that Kristi Noem getting all the plastic surgery she got and then cheating on her husband may have led to this fetish. Like, again, sometimes people sexualize and fetishize things that happen to them in real life as a way to cope, as a way to process, as a way to sort of rewire the brain around that thing. And so, I don't know. It's not bad or wrong. Again, consenting adults can do what they want. Sex work should be legal. And for him to have consenting adults do this kink and act out this fetish with him is fine. Why the internet lost their mind over it, I have no idea. Now, I am talking about this because, again, the hypocrisy of the MAGA movement as a quote unquote right wing, quote unquote Christian movement is staggering. Again, like if you're approaching Christianity in any sort of evangelical way, then the marriage is supposed to be not full of adultery. So I don't know. Kristi Noem's in the wrong there. Donald Trump's in the wrong there. Pretty much everybody except for Mike Johnson that I can think of in the government has had an affair. even cabinet members. Linda McMahon's a cabinet member. Getting her husband Vincent Kennedy McMahon's sexual trafficking lawsuit dismissed. It's just corruption it's very hard to talk about current events because there's just so many things going on. Lots of corruption. But anyway, everyone was sort of freaking out about this stuff. And again, it's messy. It's a political scandal. Is it going to get headlines? Yeah. The affair seemed to be a fairly open secret. So just because it's like a fun out there, and it's not, right? Like for people who, all of the sex educators that have worked with in the past, people who I follow online, all talks about how this is not like, this is a pretty common thing, right? It's fairly common to be into some form of cross-dressing, be into some sort of power dynamic around that, where you're made to cross-dress, or you're struggling, you're into it, but you're uncomfortable with it. So there needs to be that power dynamic where you're made to do it. Like degradation and stuff like that is not that uncommon. Again, I would say between consenting adults, cool, have fun, y'all. The affair part seems not consenting and seems unethical, right? And so the hypocrisy of people who want to demonize trans rights, who want to take away protections for the LGBTQ plus community, to be living sort of this life. It's more rules for thee, not for me, and it's sort of a standard Republican practice. But I do think it's still useful to call out the hypocrisy. Again, not that like it seems to matter. Everyone wants to cry morality about everything in the Republican Party when what's her name, Lauren Boebert's given handies in a theater and also has a kid who's underage who's getting pregnant. Like they're hypocrites, of course, because the church is useful as a shield against that hypocrisy. You get to claim moral high ground while not acting in any sort of moral or ethical way. So that's not a huge surprise. The other seemingly unrelated story that I wanted to talk about is two pastors from the New Apostolic Reform, that is Mike Johnson and Pete Hegseth, sort of filtering out from the Doug Wilson Church up in Moscow, Idaho. I've talked about that before. There's a bunch of neo-Nazis up there too. I don't think those things are unrelated. And yeah, they went viral a little bit just because it is the clip that got clipped is "Women Need to Shut Up," said by a male pastor, and talking about how God wants women to shut up. It's in the Bible that women should shut up, and that they don't get to be in authority positions, particularly in government. They shouldn't be voting because that's a position of authority, and certainly not in the home. It's just like patriarchy and misogyny. Again, the Bible was written by patriarchal rulers and misogynistic men. Like, that's not a mystery here. And so, sure, you can find places in the Bible where it says that. Jesus also tells the disciples to sit down, shut up, and listen to the women. So, the Bible pretty much says whatever you want it to say because it is not a historical document. It is fanfic for a religion. I mean, all religious scripture is fanfic, right? Like, what are we doing? We shouldn't be having this conversation at high level political conversations at the same time, because these people shouldn't be put in charge of anything. Hegseth, by the way, excluded Catholics from like the Easter prayer breakfast thing, because again, you can't have religious extremists in these positions of power without their religion getting in the way. These people would not go to the same church and worship in the same way and follow the same rules and restrictions of their religion, and yet they all want to put their religion as number one. Pretending that Christianity is only one religion is flawed, and that's never going to pan out. And again, the thing with fascism is there always needs to be an enemy, so at some point these people are going to be the enemy. Sort of surprised Hegseth has made it this far. He seems useful in doing the Fox News talking points, where he just shouts unrelated things like an idiot, and also committing war crimes. So, that's sort of where we're at. But yes, these pastors said women needed to shut up, and that was biblical and godly, and also then let's take away their right to vote. Now, I've seen these pastors. What are their names? I have it somewhere. Do. I wrote it down. Look at me taking notes. Let's see. Joel Webbin and Wesley Todd. They like are part of some sort of NAR. It's called NXR, New Christian Right, but it's the New Apostolic Reform is sort of the branch of denomination church they're from. But that's like their podcast platform. It's on Rumble, where all the neo Nazis also go, and right wingers who can't get platformed elsewhere, I guess. But again, so how are these things connected, right? You sort of have this, I would say, run of the mill, if it weren't for the hypocrisy, sex scandal, not even your elected official having a weird kink, but also because the elected official is having a very open affair, it sort of becomes news. I don't want to say it's everyone's business. It's not. Consenting adults, do what you want. But because of the positions of power and because it's going to grab some headlines, here we are. And then women need to shut up, right? Not a stance I take. Women should be put in charge of everything and the world would be a better place. Is my stance. The idea that these things are both about control, right? And so why is this such a big deal in MAGA? Why is this such a big deal in Christianity? Christianity has always weirdly been interested in sex, because sex is something that is important for control. And if you look at organized religion, as the organizing principle of organized religion is in-group, out-group, there needs to be an in-group, there needs to be an out-group. And if you need to control your in-group, sex is a powerful way to do that. Why? Because sex is supernatural and awesome. I see you ace folks, so I won't say everybody likes sex, but most people like sex and most people enjoy it. Sex does a lot of interesting things to our brain and our body. Specifically, releases a lot of feel-good drugs all in one go. That's an orgasm. And it does a lot of fun things for our brain. Our brain really likes it. Now, if you're feeling that good in your body and you're feeling good with a partner, also releases a bunch of hormones and pheromones to feel connected to that person that we experienced that orgasm with. And so that connection between the people becomes very important, and our connection and our pleasure based in our body become very important. And if we can just feel good in our own bodies and feel connected to other people because of sex, what role does the church have? It doesn't, right? It doesn't. If what church offers us is community, and I will say that's pretty much the only thing I ever give organized religion credit for, is being able to offer community. And you can get that without needing to go to church. What's the point, right? If you can feel good, not because of some promised eternal afterlife or because they turned the heat up too hot in the church, so you felt some feelings while the live band played, but instead in your own body, you don't need that from church. You don't need community from church. You can do that yourself with another consenting adult. And so the church wants to limit that, which means, limiting sex as only okay before, only okay after marriage with your partner, and also then like traumatizing your brain well before you start having sex. So even when you are married and doing it quote unquote the correct way, you still have a bunch of shame and guilt, which is what I see in my office on a weekly basis, right? That purity culture is harmful, and also rules for thee, not for me. We have all these priests, all these pastors. Every major religion has a sex scandal within the past year. And so there are all these things going on all the time where it's like regular people are being controlled to feel bad for this thing that's very natural to them. If you say you should feel guilty and shameful about your natural sexual desires, well, those things are always going on. They're natural, they're healthy. And if we demonize them, then you have guilt and shame. If you have guilt and shame, you feel bad. If you feel bad, you need to feel better. If you need to feel better, the church can sell you a savior, right? And so if your main business model is telling people they need to be, if your main business model is selling a savior, you need to convince people they need to be saved. And so you demonize something that's always going to happen, that's natural and healthy, just sexual desire, and you put a bunch of control mechanisms around that, right? It's like terrible in its unethical immorality, but it's super effective. It's a neat, tidy little way to control people just on this one thing. And obviously the church tries to control more than just sex, but that is a big one. And so organized religion existing as social control, then sex becomes a really good mechanism for getting out of the church potentially. And so we need to control it for that. And then we also can make it feel bad when it's supposed to feel good and control people that way. Right. Uh, you could, limit people's, and like fascism, right? We have authoritarianism, like hundreds of thousands of people have died this Trump administration. Millions will die because of just like cutting US aid. Um, but yeah, like we've got an ongoing war and lots of people have died. There are certain things that you can't take away that would work for social manipulation, like food and water and shelter. And we're doing that to Black and brown people here in America and in other countries, um, which is a problem. But people are dying, and so you can't keep them in the church. You can't get tax-free money from them in the church if you're killing them all. Sex is one of those things that is natural, is healthy, is really good for people, but people won't die without it, right? And so they will find a way to pursue it. They will get it elsewhere, but also not going to die. It's not lethal. And so it serves as like a nice non-kinky leash for the church to try and control people in. That was a joke for the kinksters out there. They'll appreciate it. If you didn't understand it, that's all right. And so again, it's okay for most of the women in the Republican Party who are high enough officials to get plastic surgery and have this sort of bimbofication of, which I can't say is a fetish or not. I'm not sure it's a kink, but again, it's called Mar-a-Lago face. It's a thing that they're all sort of going for because someone thinks it's attractive. Yuck. Who's the other like really common one? There's one of the Trumps, Lara, I don't know what her name is. Laura Loomer is the other sort of classic example. Caroline Leavitt, I think what's her name, the AG who just got let go, Pam Bondi, awful human being, defender of pedophiles. I think also she looks like she got at least a nose job, but like went the almost like old way, like I don't know. I'm going to say like Michael Jackson got a lot of work done. Now, also, I'm autistic and have face blindness, so this stuff is not my forte. I don't really care what people look like. I think everyone is beautiful and lovely, and probably doesn't need plastic surgery unless they want plastic surgery for some reason. I'm not opposed to it, but like again, to do some of these things and then cry foul about like trans people seeking gender affirming care when like y'all are getting hair plugs and breast implants and lip injections and all those things. Like all that stuff's gender affirming care. Elon Musk has had a bunch of gender affirming care. Donald Trump has had a bunch of gender affirming care. Like gender as a social concept can be supported in all of these things. If you're modifying your body to make yourself feel better, it's gender affirming care, right? And so yeah, like this all comes back to control. Kristi Noem's husband is a bad guy because he's doing a kink that isn't masculine. His fetish, his play goes against gender norms, and that goes against the Republican narrative that, like, first of all, there's only two genders, which is false, easily provably false. There's only two sexes, also easily provably false. They conflate gender and sex all the time. I just don't think they're clever enough to understand any sort of nuance, and or they're arguing in bad faith. Bit of both, I would say. So we have this pastor who's saying women need to shut up. That's very obvious sense of control. And then you have this messiness with Kristi Noem, where again, like it's a dude who's breaking the quote unquote social contract around gender norms, but also his partner is breaking the quote unquote social contract around what marriage is supposed to be from a Christian perspective. Again, like consenting adults do what you want, but like that Christian sort of idea of purity culture, monogamy, as the only like ethical sort of way to be married. But all the headlines weren't about the affair. They were all about the fetish. So again, it's messy. It's not surprising. This is not like a new thing. But again, I think it's really easy to look at like Hegseth talking about doing war crimes and Trump, manipulating the oil prices for insider trading purposes and just like corruption. Trump's in the Epstein files, yada, yada, yada. We're not even talking about that anymore, right? But like these sort of smaller examples, I think are really important to highlight from time to time because this is what is still going on. Like the people who listen to Rumble are the people who used to listen to Rush Limbaugh, the people who like put Kirk bumper stickers on their car and think they're cool instead of being so embarrassing, are listening to these Rumble things. And again, they're being told misogyny is not only cool and okay, but actually God wants you to do that. And what happens then? You have spousal abuse. You have people who are harming women, who are treating women as objects, who are doing these things non-consensually because the Bible never talks about consent. Lot of differentiation on when it is okay to beat your slave and when it isn't okay, but we skipped the topic of consent. And so these rules are all about control. The rules around purity culture, the rules around all these things about control. And when you're setting the rules about control, what is implied but isn't outright stated, but what these examples are really good examples of, is that control only flows down. So for the people in power, they're not beholden to those same rules. Rules for thee, not for me, is that really good summary of sort of the Republican idea. But the rules don't apply to them. So Kristi Noem has the power. Her husband's the bad guy, even though she's doing the same things as far as the bimbofication goes. And like, she's not, I guess. I can see the argument that getting plastic surgery isn't the same thing as bimbofication. I understand that there is nuance there. One of those things is for sexual gratification as part of a fetish or part of kink play, but it's related. There's almost no way they're not my clients. I can't say for sure. And if they were my clients, they'd be protected by HIPAA. There's no way those things aren't related. So anyway, doing the same thing, but also doing something that goes against the quote unquote public image of, I keep doing quote unquote, that's my version of allegedly, right? Going against the morals of public performance of Christianity. And so, yeah, it's floundering. Again, they're getting wild. These are messy things. They're silly things. We have corruption out in the open. We have war crimes out in the open. We have market manipulation. We have affairs out in the open. We have pedophiles out in the open. Like, we have all these things because the empire is crumbling. And I've talked about the crumble being a lot slower and more tedious process than a collapse, which is what I think a lot of people thought would happen. Like, it's broken, it's falling apart. And we're not to the cool part yet where we can like all be on solar energy and everyone can have food and clothing and housing, which is, again, very doable. We're just not doing it because, I don't know, we keep putting the wrong people in charge. But so the messiness from the church, from the administration eating itself, that's not a surprise. That was always going to happen. And so like Pam Bondi is a good example. Again, women who support patriarchy, women who take on roles within the patriarchy are always going to get thrown under the bus, right? Stephen Miller is still employed. Pete Hegseth hasn't lost his job yet. Tom Homan, who we know took a bribe, it got put in charge of DHS after Kristi Noem got let go. So again, these women who want to be on sort of the like, see, they're not misogynist, see, they're not bad guys, are always going to be the ones to first fall, because they are bad guys. They are misogynistic. They're going to get rid of the women first because that is convenient for them and sticks to their narrative. In the same way that like these pastors are getting more and more extreme because the church's monopoly on the flow of information is gone. I mean, the internet exists and most people have access to it. And so you can't enforce these things because you can find about your pastor's past discretions. You can find about all the different sexual scandals in every single major organized religion. Like, it's not hard to pop that bubble of like, oh, this power makes sense because it is godly. God willed it. Like, nah, that doesn't happen. And so the amount of control shrinks, and then the focus of where those rules have to flow, where that power is trying to flow, gets to smaller and smaller groups. So, we had the satanic panic, and then we had the gay panic, and then we had, now we have panic around trans people and IVF, which is like incredibly small percentages of the population, because they have to have that bad guy, the big scary thing, but it doesn't hold up under any sort of scrutiny. It's just flailing while again their power and their control crumble. But it does real harm. Again, it's fun every once in a while to like point at the hypocrisy and laugh about how silly it all is. And people are harmed. Like they're taking away trans people's driver's licenses. They're limiting their ability to move from state to state. They're trying to eliminate people's right to vote because of that. So again, like it's about control, and specifically in patriarchy, it's about controlling women. Again, the Save Act is an attack on women's right to vote. It also is a rebrand because Trump has to go out of his way to use all the acronyms that Biden and Obama used. Like he's a very childish, petty person who also has dementia and goes to Walter Reed once a month to get treatment, which is why he wasn't in Mar-a-Lago over Easter. Like again, just it's exhausting to use your brain and pay attention in these times. And like I didn't even read about the Supreme Court stuff today. I saw one headline. I was like, nope, because for my mental health, I have to stay away from that stuff because there is nothing that's more infuriating to me as a mental health professional who has evidence-based practice and has all this research background and has all this thing that knows how science is supposed to work. I went to a research institution. I've been published in research journals and scientific journals. I know how to do all that stuff. And so like the Supreme Court being like, meh, facts don't matter and we're just making stuff up because it works. And also we're going to claim that we're originalists, but only if it makes our argument for us, is very, very frustrating. And so again, there's everyone's sort of flailing in all directions and people are being harmed because of it. We could just say, hey, these people don't deserve to be in power and like this system's broken. Let's do something different. There's again a lot more of us than them, but civilizations shifting and societies collapsing is never really an easy process. So we have these attacks on women, we have these attacks certainly on sex. Like that's not new, right? The Pope has been outspoken about like genocide is bad and so is war, and Pete Hegseth's prayers aren't getting heard because it's got blood on his hands. But also the Pope has protected a ton of priests who are pedophiles. So like the church isn't on some sort of high ground there. They are part of the problem systemically, institutionally, structurally. They defend predators because it protects their own power. And so, yeah, I don't know. Sex is good. Consenting adults can enjoy each other. Pleasure is a good thing for us. And these ghouls, these people in charge who are miserable, awful people themselves, have to attack that stuff because it's how they feel like they're in control. Um, I said like you put a leash on something that's pleasurable. Like, yeah, that's the problem. The problem isn't that something that's pleasurable exists. The problem isn't that somebody has a fetish. The problem isn't playful kink with sex workers. The problem is awful people in power harming people. Abuses of power becoming so normalized that we don't even like that's not even a headline anymore. The Kristi Noem ad money, the jet she gave herself, Kash Patel going to the Olympics. Like again, the corruption and those types of things aren't even in the news anymore. The Epstein files are hardly hanging on in the news anymore. It's yeah, it's falling apart. But again, as the power structure crumbles, the harm that gets done gets more and more narrowly focused on the smaller groups. They're trying to take away the rights of women to vote. They have, in some states like Kansas, successfully taken away the right for trans people to vote because you need ID to vote, and they just nullified all trans people's IDs overnight. So again, like, and I don't know that that'll hold up in court. I don't know that that will lead to trans people not being able to vote in Kansas in November. In the midterms, but like again, they're trying these things. Whether or not they work will be the question. But like they've gotten a bunch of stuff through. Again, they're deporting people illegally. They're doing a war illegally. The corruption is off the charts illegal. So they're doing a bunch of stuff that we know is illegal, and they're still doing it. So whether or not this stuff works will be the long-term question, and how long it takes to. I don't want to pick up the pieces, just like do something different will be the other question. And if all this stuff is like stressful, yeah, correct. That's your brain working correctly. We're not designed to regulate our way through this. We're not designed to breathe and then be okay. Like, this is supposed to be dysregulating because it's bad. A lot of people are being harmed. We don't have the power to stop it, even though we don't agree with it morally. And we don't have the power to stop paying for it. My taxes went up this year um, for no good reason, because somebody has to make billions of dollars while they're in office. I don't know. To fund a genocide, because the political party that claims to care about families and children got rid of a bunch of those tax credits. It's a very, very stupid time to be alive. So yeah, you got to take care of yourself. Hopefully, if this stuff's stressful, you didn't listen to it all. Some of like these stories are so over the top as to be somewhat comical. Again, like the real harm is happening. I'm not dismissing that. I don't want to like poke fun about it all, but like these are not serious people. They're doing serious harm, but like this is not some sort of coherent master plan. The Heritage Foundation is a little bit of the dog that caught the car. They are getting some of their stuff done, but there's no long-term plan, because again, like the churches have never been able to hold on to power because churches can't agree with themselves because they get so bogged down in churchy stuff, which is all made up. People arguing about their favorite version of their preferred fanfic. So I don't know. I don't have like a nice landing place. This stuff is frustrating and stressful because your brain is reading the situation correctly. The idea that we could just clothe everyone, house everyone, feed everyone because we have enough room for everyone on the planet, we have enough food for everyone on the planet, and we could all have our basic needs met. But like, I don't know. We got to feed the robots that steal copyrighted material? Question mark. I truly don't understand. Somebody who's not motivated by money because money's made up, none of it makes sense to me. So yeah, none of this is new. Again, if 300 years ago, I could also have done this podcast about how the church is abusing their power and using sex as a mechanism of control, because it's always been there. Could have done it 1,000 years ago. Could have done it 2,000 years ago. It's not a new idea. We're just seeing it play out very foolishly and nonsensically. But that's part of fascism too. Is it's paradoxical on purpose. Take care of yourself, be like me and don't read the latest analysis of the Supreme Court, 'cause it's just going to make you batty because they're not doing something logical. And if you have a brain that works logically, it's going to hurt your brain. Vote for whoever is wanting to hold the current regime to account and also expand the Supreme Court, or just get rid of the corrupt justices would probably work too. We're too far away from the midterms for some of that, though. So, America falling apart. But hopefully you're not falling apart. Take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. It's a marathon, not a sprint, y'all. All right, peace.